If I was to start all over again and I had nothing to my name and I wanted to make £10,000 a month, I'm going to give you guys a step-to-step guide on what exactly I would do. So hopefully you can copy me and do the exact same thing. Now, thankfully, Allah has blessed me and I've started 5 different businesses, out of which many of them are successful. Some of them we continue to try to work on them on a daily basis, but a few of them have ended up doing extremely well for me. One of the first ever businesses I started was a recruitment company, which I started at the age of 25 years old. Now, if I was to do everything all over again, no doubt I would go back to doing something which I know best. So day one, I'm about to start my business. What would I do? Look, I think the number one thing is telling yourself that it's going to be a long run. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple. A lot of us, we want quick money. Unfortunately, social media has painted a picture where if you're not making money quickly, fast, it's sort of not good enough. And this video, of course, is about making £10,000 a month the fastest way possible and how I would do things. But it's also okay to tell yourselves if it takes time, that's okay as well. Bearing in mind, a business like this won't actually take that much money. It won't take a lot to start. And so if it's a Monday morning and I'm about to start this business all over again, then I would start with, for the first few hours, I would probably just make a list of companies that I'm going to contact, that I'm going to get in touch with to basically win business. Because sometimes the back end in terms of building that list of companies, it's actually quite important. And I'll give you a prime example. Whenever people think about starting their own recruitment company, some people make this big mistake of telling themselves, you know what? I am going to make a list of companies who are already advertising. So the mistake they'll make is they'll go on Indeed, and let's say they want to do recruitment within accountants. They will go on Indeed, type in accountants, and every single company that is advertising for an accountant, they'll just get in touch with them. Now, that is the worst way you can build a list. And this is, by the way, why having the knowledge and having information is super important to increasing the chances of you successfully starting a business. In fact, I would say one of the biggest reasons you guys won't have success in starting a business is because you lack knowledge and understanding of what is the right way. And I'll give you a prime example in this scenario. You guys are thinking, well, why is going on Indeed and companies that are already advertising, why is that not the best way? And a lot of people will also use Reed, Total Jobs, and maybe even Google on in terms of whoever is advertising for an accountant, they will just get in touch with that company. The reason that's bad is because that company has most probably been advertising that role for a week already. So they already have some CVs, and most likely they probably have already contacted the recruitment agencies that they already want to deal with. The point being here is the race has already started. You're already too late. And to give you more context, I mean, imagine a HR manager or a production manager sitting in a meeting with, their colleagues sort of thing. And now they're sitting there and they're discussing, oh, we need to hire this, we need to hire that, etc., etc. Well, guess what? That hiring manager, whoever that hiring manager is, isn't going to go back on their desk straight away, write up a job description and post it online. And straight away, you're going to contact them and, oh, great, it's a miracle. Yes, just so happy to get in touch with me. Actually, what tends to happen in corporate environments is they have this meeting, they go back to their desk, they tell themselves, I will write an advert in the evening or tomorrow or day after, and I'll get it out the day after. But what's an easy thing to do? Contact the recruitment agency and say, we're looking for this and this, and then get an advert out a day or 2 days later. Which, by the way, that means if best case scenario, you would have contacted that company 3 or 4 days after the process was already started, and that is already very late. Think of it like this. If you contact the company and you say, well, I've got this really good accountant, he's looking for work, he's got this, is this something that we can introduce to your company, for example? The person is already on the back foot because they're thinking, well, I've already given it to the other agencies. I've already got an advert out. Do I really want to give it to you? It's easier to say no, thank you. It's easier because the need is not there now. You need to create a big need. Now, how do you do that? Well, you're going to do that by building a list of companies who maybe are not necessarily looking right now, but maybe looking for someone in the future. And that is the key here. You want to speak to companies that say a contract's going to be coming on board in 3 months or 2 months, projects coming in a month or 2 months, and you keep in touch with that company and you build rapport with that person so that when the contract comes, when the project comes, remember when I said the hiring manager would just call the recruitment agencies after the meeting and just say, can you find us someone? Well, hopefully once you build that relationship, once obviously the contract and project has come through and they need people, well, they're going to contact you. So the point is, you want to be there when the race starts. You don't want to be there when the race is about to finish. But I'm sure you guys can see that I'm trying to give you guys as much benefit as possible. And the idea here now is to make long form content for you guys, hours and hours of content, so I can give you guys benefit. And hopefully this is of benefit. Now, if this is, like this video, share with your family or friends, and subscribe to the channel, because hopefully I can share tons of knowledge that I've built over 12 years with you guys on this YouTube channel. Now, let's say I've built this list of companies that I'm going to contact. What's the right way to do it? There is a right way, but if I go through every single little thing, it's going to be quite difficult. But there's a right way to build a list of companies. And then what I would do is find candidates. Let me explain something. I want to go to the market with, let's stick to this accountant niche. I think it would be beneficial for the video as well. Let's say accountants are the ones that I'm going to help get a job in accountancy firms. And for those of you that are watching this intrigued and thinking, well, how am I actually going to make money? I think it's probably an important part for me to cover at this point. If this accountant, in essence, a recruitment company makes money by getting a person a job in a company. So this accountant, if I supply an accountant to an accounting firm, I would charge the accounting firm a minimum of 15%. Many companies today charge 20, 25%, though at a minimum I would charge 15%, which would mean out of £40,000 a year salary, I would charge 15%, which would mean £6,000. That would be my fee to find this person. Now, a lot of people think, well, why are companies even using recruitment companies? For this exact same reason. They had a meeting, they haven't got time. They're doing other things and they need someone to find someone else. And by the way, 30% of people are actively looking for a new job and 70% of people are passively looking for a new job. Many of you guys watching today, you may not have updated your CV, you may not have put your CV out there, but if someone contacts you with the right job, with a higher salary, you may be interested. That is the point. 70% of people are passively looking, and the recruitment company, it's their job to find those passive candidates, because every company knows that for a company to be successful, you need to find the best candidates possible, and therefore you need access to those 70% of candidates. So going back to how a recruitment company makes money, it gives you an idea that we need to make 2 placements a month to give us that £12,000 a month. And bearing in mind, it could be more than that and it could be less than that. It depends on the percentage you agree and the salary that the person is going to get paid. So the accountant is getting paid 40, but if the accountant was getting paid 60 or 65 or £70,000, for example, we would charge 15%, which would mean £10,500 on a £70,000 a year salary. And by the way, that is becoming a lot more common today than it was 5 years ago, because salaries are increasing, though ever so slightly, they are increasing, which means we still charge minimum 15%, meaning in just one placement, one successful candidate, you can make £10,500. But I go back to, again, the step to what I would do next, and I would get in touch with candidates. And so I would find accountants that are actively looking for work. The key here, by the way, is I would find candidates that are actively looking for work and are also very good, because I don't want an accountant that is sort of working somewhere for 6 months and somewhere else 6 months and doesn't look great on their CV and hasn't worked for the best companies. So the point here is, I want to find an accountant who has a ton of experience, who looks really good, and I want to find at least 3 or 4 accountants. Why? Well, let me explain. I will grab these 3 or 4 accountants. I will work with them and I will tell them, well, you're interested, you're looking for this. And I will make sure, by the way, that these accountants are actually interested in a new role. Because the biggest mistake I can make here is I speak to an accountant who is interested in a new job, but they're comfortable and they're happy in their current job, and that need and that desire isn't really there to find a new job. Now, if that desire and that need isn't there, if I go put them forward to a company and that company is actually interested in interviewing them, that person might not turn up. That person might flop that interview because that need and that desire to actually move wasn't there. So it's important for me to suss that out in the beginning. And this is the thing here. The recruitment process may sound easy, where you find a candidate and you supply it to a company. But actually, there are probably 20, 30, maybe even 50 variables through the whole process where if you're making a single mistake, a little mistake, then it could be stopping you from making money. And hopefully this gives you an idea on exactly how to fix those mistakes. Though it would be close to impossible for me to cover that all in one YouTube video, assuming, by the way, we've actually created a whole recruitment course, which is 20 hours plus with 6 different directors on exactly how you guys will start your own recruitment company. Now, if that is something of interest, there is a link in the description at the bottom of this video, though I still want this video to be of benefit and you to take as much value as you possibly can. So I focus on getting a good candidate. Why would I do that? Because I would rather go to this list of companies that I've built. I would rather go to them with a candidate. Because in essence, if I just call them and I'm speaking to them or I'm emailing them and however I'm doing business development with them, if now I don't have a product and I'm just asking them whether they need my product, then it's a much harder sell. A much easier sell is if you have a really good product and you go to the company and you say, well, I've got this really good, shiny product, right? I've got this really good, shiny, beautiful product who could do magic for you. Then all of a sudden, this company has some interest, right? It's much easier to sell something when you have a product, but it's much harder to sell something when they don't even know what they're actually going to be buying into. So have the products ready. At that point, I would start sending emails to the companies. I would send possibly 100, 200, 300 emails. I would use softwares. I would use campaigns. I would use ways where I can send cold emails to companies because again, it's a very easy way. Though, let me be very clear as well. I would also make calls to companies and let them know that I've got these really good accountants looking for work. And if that is something that they may be in the market for. Now, a lot of people think that companies won't really use recruitment companies and they will find it difficult. And actually, they're very wrong because a lot of companies need recruitment companies. And it's just a case of you need to speak to someone who is in need of the person that they may be looking for. And you'll be surprised how comfortable and easygoing companies are in doing business with you. If you have an accountant and they're currently looking for an accountant, or they might be looking for an accountant in a month or 2 months' time, then you'll be surprised how very easy they are in dealing business with you. And this is exactly how I built my recruitment company from zero to making £25,000 a month after just 6 months. And I continue to grow it today. And today we deal with companies internationally and with some of the biggest companies in the world. And that only happened because I did these things every single day. And I turned up every day and consistently did the emails, the calls, speaking to clients and speaking to candidates. Now let's talk numbers. Because if I'm working a job and if I'm not able to put these hours in and if I'm not able to make calls, what would I do? I'll tell you something. You doing 2 or 3 calls a day and sending 100 or 200 emails and trying to win business with companies is actually much better than you doing nothing. Because if you're working a job right now and you want out of your job and you want to get out and you want to make £10,000 a month, you want that to be an opportunity and you want to see light at the end of the tunnel, that's never going to happen by you not doing something. There are a lot of people, in fact, most people that we teach today in starting their own recruitment company, I would say 8 out of 10 people start their recruitment company part-time. So 8 out of 10 people start their recruitment company part-time. They make 1 or 2 placements. They see it works. They see they can see success in it. They leave their job. They've got £10,000 in the bank account and they take the risk. Now, obviously, that's a subjective thing. Not everyone can take that risk and some people have families and that's completely understandable. But the point is this, that it is possible to start part-time, doing the hours, doing the work, sending the emails and making the calls. Even if that's a little amount, it's 1 placement or 2 placements and you could be making £10,000 a month. And bearing in mind, guys, it is just a case of finding 1 client. If you can have 1 client who is basically looking for 1 or 2 people a month, you are in essence making £5,000 to £10,000 a month with just 1 client. 1 client could change your life. And that is exactly what happened with me. In fact, I'll tell you a story of how I got my first client and how that 1 client made me £80,000 to £100,000 for the next 7 years. Just 1 company. I remember being in my bedroom working with one of my friends because the other friend was actually working a notice period and he wasn't able to join us the month before. I was laying in bed and we were just sending some emails and I was pretending to work. You know, when you're pretending to yourself you're working, but actually you're not. And really and truly, we were just having a laugh for the first month. But I thought, you know what, let me send some emails out and let me, just do a little bit. I probably sent about 4 or 5 emails that day. 1 email came back and it was a client and she was saying that we actually do need someone. It made me feel like, wow, so I need to stop chilling now and I actually need to do something, right? I need to find these candidates. Qadar I actually found candidates for that company. Now that one company ended up working with me and still today works with me after just 1 email where I was laying in bed and didn't even really want to work and I wanted to chill for the first month, but I wanted to pretend that I was doing something. That's exactly how I got my first client on board. And it gives a prime example to sometimes you just need to start. Sometimes you just need to take action, do something so you can make things happen. A lot of us are sitting today telling ourselves we're going to do something, but actually we don't end up doing anything. Now, going back to I'm trying to win business, I'm trying to get companies to work with me. Look, there are a ton of objections that we have to go through. I would say there's probably about 50 objections that a company can have, and it would be close to impossible for me to go over every single objection. However, Some of the objections may be, what are your terms? As long as you've got the right product for them, they're interested. Most of the time, as long as you have the right candidate that can fit into their company, they will at least show interest into what sort of candidate you can find for them. Now, this is a key part and probably one of the places where people make the biggest mistake. And that is people get too excited when they get a job on. People get too excited when they get business on. And you'll be thinking, well, why is that a mistake? And guys, I need you to hear this out because there's a lot of value in this video. And what's interesting is I know that a lot of people will not end up watching this video because it's a value-filled video rather than entertainment. But for you that are still watching this video, I know you're going to continue finding value in this. So do share it with your family and friends and like this video if you haven't already. But understand this, in starting a recruitment business for themselves, is when they get a business to work with them, or when they get a business that says, yes, can you find us someone? Or yes, we need people. They get very excited and they think, well, that's it. The company is happy for us to work with them. And so they think, well, if the company is now happy to work with us and they're happy for us to find CVs, then this is exactly where we're going to make money. But the reality is something else, actually, because if you can speak to several companies, if you can get tons of business on, if you can actually, speak to and try doing business development for 3 to 4 weeks, you'll be surprised how many companies are actually willing to work with you. I would say for anyone who is doing business development for 4 weeks, they could easily pick up 30 to 40 companies that are happy to work with them over a month. So now what's the point here? And how do people make mistakes? What happens is, think of it like this. If a company gives you a job straight away or tells you that you can work on their business straight away, they're too easy. That business was too easy, and that is a little bit worrying, right? Now, sometimes it can work, but I have to be honest, only about 15 to 20% and maybe even less does it actually go through. So if they can so easily give you business, they most likely will give other recruitment agencies business very easily as well. And if they give other recruitment agencies business very easily as well, that means that there's probably 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 recruitment agencies trying to find this one person for this company. Which means now you're competing with 10 other recruitment agencies to find this one person. And if someone hasn't found people already, then alarm bells are ringing. Why not? Why is it taking 10 recruitment agencies to find one person for this company? So this is the key. You want to figure out how long this company has been looking for someone, how many recruitment agencies are working with this company. And that is exactly where you're going to be able to figure out whether you need to work with this company or not. Because actually, to make a recruitment business successful, and this is the key here, right? You have to say no to business. You have to reject business. Because if you say yes to all the businesses, then you're going to be chasing your tail because you're going to be working a job which actually you're not going to make money on. And the only way you can know that you will make money on this company is if you ask the right questions. Now, again, there are 20, 30, 40, 50 questions maybe that sometimes you need to ask in depending on what situation and depending on the company and etc. etc. But hopefully this gives you an idea that you need to understand how long they've been looking, how many recruitment companies they are actually working with at the moment, and alarm bells would ring. If they give me business too easily, the likelihood is they will do that with everyone else. The likelihood is there's something wrong. Now, what am I looking for? What are positives and what are pros that I would be looking for? If I'm calling companies and if I'm emailing companies, I want companies to say, we don't need anyone right now. Or something like, that's not something we're looking for. If they say that's not something we're looking for, you obviously want to say, well, that's not something you're looking for. What is it you are looking for? We work with various roles. That's actually a golden nugget that hopefully you guys can benefit from. Make sure you're writing this stuff down, by the way. But having said that, you want to make sure that the company has not necessarily been looking for 3, 4, 5, 6 months for one person, because the chances of you filling that role are very low. Actually, what you want to do is, again, going back to our conversation of building the list and joining the race at the start, not once it's already started, you want to make sure that the company is saying something like, I'm going to be looking for someone in a week. Oh, surprise, surprise. In a month, we've got a project coming up. I'm going to need people. So your questions, therefore, will be around the future and not right now. A mistake people make is they start asking about right now. So, do you need someone right now? Are you looking for something else right now? How can I make money right now? It's not always about right now. Though many people make money in their first month or their second month, it's never about the first call or the first time you speak to someone. Actually, it's about the second, third, fourth time. Did you know that the business which is closed the most is actually on the seventh call? What that basically means is you speak to someone once, twice, three, four, five, six, and then seventh time. The seventh time is where the highest chance of success in closing a client happens. Why? Well, because when I first call a company, they don't know my name, they don't know my company, they don't know what I do. I will call and I will just say, hey, it's Musab, I'm calling from so and so. And second call, I call and hey, so and so. Again, they still don't know me. But by the fifth time, as soon as I say, hey, Mark, it's Musab, I'm calling from, all of a sudden they're thinking, well, yeah, actually, I remember this guy. I know who this guy is, right? And so this is the point, that you want to make sure that you are building that rapport, building that relationship, and that's how you're getting business. Now, I'm going to add in another golden nugget, and hopefully you guys are writing this down, stopping, pausing, rewinding, and going through everything you can possibly go through. Another way that you can actually build business is by taking references. And how would you take references? Well, you've got these 3, 4 candidates, remember, that you were speaking to, and that you are going to take to the market and speak to companies whether they are going to be good for them. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to say to them, well, for me to represent you and make sure that everything is okay, I know your current employer won't want to give a reference for obvious reasons, but is there an old employer that is willing to sort of share how you were and what years you worked there? We have to do it for compliance, right? And again, it's a good compliance to have. It's not something you're lying about, right? And so what you would do then, they would give you a company, they would give you some details. You would contact that company and you would say something like, oh, Mark was working there. How was he? How long did he work there? Make sure do what you need to do, or to ask the obvious questions that you would take when you're taking a reference. But then after that, what you would say is something like, look, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, but is this something that you are looking for right now? Are you looking for accountants at the moment? It's something we actually look for, and is there something I can help you with? Now, bearing in mind there's two things here. The company is thinking, well, obviously he knows Mark, who used to work in, therefore he does accountancy and helps us find or helps companies find accountants. But also, how interesting, he takes references, and not all recruitment companies take references, which means they do work quite well. So it's a good, easy, and soft way to swing and ask the question whether you can build business with this company as well. Now, my focus when I'm doing this business development, again, is trying to make sure that I'm going to be working with a company that is most definitely going to make me money. 8 out of 10 companies, and 8 out of 10 companies that you get jobs on with and get business on with, will not actually make you money. That's a fact. So you need to ask questions in the best way possible. You need to ask the right questions, and you need to make sure how serious this company is. Now, once you do that over and over again, after a month or 2 months, you will start working with 1 or 2 companies that will be super, super interested and super needy for your services. And those are the companies that I will focus on. I will look for candidates on the evenings and the weekends. I will speak to whoever I can. I will make sure that I am over delivering with these 1 or 2 clients. Because a mistake a lot of people will do is they will spread their attention over 10 or 15 companies, but actually 10 or 15 companies aren't going to make them money. And so in that 10, 15 companies, there's probably 1 or 2 companies where that's where the money is. That's where the gold is. But because they're spread so thin, they're not able to focus. They're not able to give that company time. They haven't even determined or figured out whether this company is where the goal is. And so asking the questions is super important. But once you have figured out where the priority is, then you focus on that company and you really make sure you hound down on providing a good service for that company. Because again, it's not just about making 1 or 2 placements. It's about making £10,000 every single month on a continuous basis. Now, there is no doubt, with obviously the experience I have and the fact that I know sales quite well, after dealing with objections and getting with companies, once I start working with 1 or 2 companies, I will start sending CVs. I will start sending them CVs of those candidates that are relevant. Again, a mistake people make is they send candidates that maybe they haven't asked enough questions to, and I will make sure I ask enough questions to these candidates to determine whether they're extremely serious in finding a new job or not. A lot of people aren't serious. A lot of people just want to know what the market is. They just want to know what is the job offering. You have to ask questions in a way which makes you understand how serious this candidate is in actually moving their job. That's key, by the way, because if you send a flaky candidate forward to a company, the likelihood is they won't even take the job. They won't even turn up to interview. You would have wasted time and you would have made yourself look terrible in front of this company. Again, a mistake people make and something you have to solve. So after building the business and getting companies to work with me, I will make sure I've got 1 or 2 candidates at least My aim would be to send 2 or 3 candidates if I'm honest, but obviously I would send one if I can only find one. But the point is, I would over deliver on the service in finding these candidates, keeping in touch with this client, and trying to make sure that I'm getting the best candidate possible for them. Now, once I start doing that, interviews will start happening. Now, if you're at a point where interviews are happening, the truth is you're doing everything you possibly can. Now, it's not really under your control. And recruitment is one of those things where you have to have thick skin. Things can go wrong sometimes, but when things go right, you make a lot of money. And that is exactly what it's about. Because if you can have 3 or 4 placements that happen in a month, and they do happen, by the way, I've had it many a times. In fact, we do much more than that now. You can easily make 15 to 20,000 pounds. And I say easily, but the time and effort is obviously needed. You do need to put the hard work in. But is it possible? Yes. I mean, look, when I'm working a job making 3,000, 2,000 pounds a month, and someone gives me an opportunity and says, and actually you can make 15 to 20,000 pounds a month doing this is exactly how you do it, shows you the way and the processes, and it obviously makes sense then. It adds up. And even you guys watching this right now will be listening and saying, seems like this guy clearly knows what he's on about. He knows how to make sure that you're getting this business and this money and the mistakes that people make. And obviously, I only know that because I've been in this industry for 12 years. And so I'm able to sit here and share this knowledge with you guys. But I have to be honest, it is just a foam at the top. And actually, there's an ocean filled where if you have the knowledge and the information, then yes, the chances of you succeeding at this are, I would say 30, 20, 30 times higher. And the pace at which you see success is obviously a lot quicker. Though once interviews start happening, the key for me will be to have consistency and work at everything on an everyday basis. A mistake again people make is they have one client, they work with one client, they send 2 CVs and they sit there and they start working at the maths. They've got the calculator there, right? And they're thinking, I've made £6,000. Fine. You might have 3 guys that are going in for an interview at this company, and obviously, hopefully, they get the job. Inshallah, they get the job and you make £6,000. But the reality is, that's not how you run businesses. It's not how it works. You can't be emotional. And again, I'll tell you a story. There was a time when I had a company and I had 14 interviews going on for 10 jobs, right? So this company needed 10 people and I had 14 interviews going on. And obviously, as you do, you get a little bit excited, right? I mean, 10 jobs, I'll let you guys do the maths. That's a lot of money. But guess what? After 14 interviews, every single person went in for their interview, something went wrong. Something just didn't work out. And when it didn't work out, guess what? Well, I didn't make any money. But the worst thing I could have done there is just stopped and cry about it, get a little bit depressed, maybe anxiety or whatever sort of thing, right? Did I do that? No, I didn't do that. What did I do? Over the weekend, I continued working my backside off. And the week after, I think I got like 6 or 7 interviews. But check this, 6 or 7 interviews and every single person got the job. Every single person. I made a lot of money, by the way, right? The point is this. The worst thing you can do is you have some bad news and you let that bad news affect you and you don't have other stuff going on and you just stop and you wait and you hope. If you're being hopeful, like you're not going to make money. That's the reality of it. You're just not going to see the results. And so the point is you have to turn up every single day. And even if something goes wrong, it's okay. Keep working at it because it is just 1 interview or 2 interviews that could make you £10,000 a month. That is exactly what I would do. I would do that from day in, day out. I would do every single process, A to Z. Now, obviously, you need to know how to deal with every single objection. But once I understand and once I become good at it, it's a case of not looking at the money, not looking at the bad news, not looking at anything else apart from just doing the basics every single day. But let's say now the client is interested in this candidate and is actually saying, well, look, we like this candidate. Can we offer this candidate? And the salary is, let's say, £50,000 a year. You're going to charge 15%, which means you're going to make £7,500. Is that it? Is that enough? There are things that you have to deal with and you have to stay on top of. And that could be something like the candidate's notice period. And it's very important, by the way. This is where you have to ask questions in the beginning because the amount of times things go wrong at the end, because people don't know, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the information. They think they're doing everything right, but they don't know. They haven't asked about how many holidays do you get in your current company? Do you have pension? Do you have any other benefits? Is there anything else that you're looking out for in your new company? These things, by the way, matter a lot to people. Because if someone's now getting, 26 holidays and in their new company, they're going to get 20 holidays, that's big. That's a week off, right? That's an extra week that a lot of people might not take a job, even if they're making £5,000 more. And again, you want to think to yourself, is someone who is traveling 5 miles, making £50,000 a year, going to take this job where they're making 55,000, but they're now having to travel 20 miles? These are all things and factors you have to factor in. And the questions you have to ask in the beginning, it is exactly what is going to help you close this candidate at the end, right? So I would ask questions like, what are the more important things to you? And what are the 3 things important to you in this new company when you're going there? It's important to know these things because actually I would tell the client these 3 things are the things that the candidate is looking out for. So if we could emphasize that in the interview, it will help me close a candidate later on, because actually the candidate could easily turn around even after the client has offered the job and say, well, I'm not interested. It's not good enough for me, right? So you have to be in control of the process from like the start to the end. And as long as you have the information and the knowledge, it's very easy. But if you don't have the knowledge and information, it's super hard. Like it's like a web that isn't making sense. And I'm not just saying this to make it sound very difficult, because there are variables that you have to factor in. Like I just said, if a candidate is now going to have to travel 20 miles and you haven't asked them the question, well, how do they travel? Maybe they're getting on a train and it's costing them £10, and now on the car it's going to cost them £20. These are the things that you need to understand and you have to know them. So there are questions you have to ask the candidate, which then later on benefit you when the candidate is interviewing at the client. And then when the client actually offers the candidate, at least then you can control the whole process and know. Now, how would you go about everything has gone smoothly now and you need to send the invoices? Can stuff still go wrong? Let me explain something. People usually ask the question, what if the company doesn't pay me? And this is an interesting question actually, because most of the time, in fact, I'll tell you this, in 12 years, I have never had one company not pay. Let me add some context to that. Why have I in 12 years not had a company not pay, even though I've probably, maybe had 1,000 people, right, get a job? Why? Because you have to understand something. People usually think when they're doing business, it's like you're doing business with a family or a friend, and it's actually nothing like that. You're doing business with a business. So let's say this business has 50 employees, and therefore they're paying each employee £2,000, for example, even though I'm sure it's more than that. That means that their salaries on a monthly basis, their outgoings just on salaries, it's £100,000. That's their payroll. So what makes you think that your £5,000 is going to affect them a lot? The truth is, to you and I, £5,000 might be a lot, but to an enterprise, to a business where they're paying 200,000, £100,000 in just salaries a month, £5,000 to you is not a lot. It's just not. And that's only for 50 employees. And some companies obviously have 200, 300, 400 and more, obviously, employees, which means just imagine the sort of money that they have and they put out on a monthly basis. Now, also factor in, is the money actually their money? What do I mean? Well, you're dealing with a HR manager or a production manager, and the likelihood is they are also an employee. It's not their money. So they don't have an emotional connection with this money. So when you say to them £5,000, all they're thinking is, well, as long as it's within my budget, I don't really care. It's not personally their money. Does that make sense? So there is no reason why they don't pay you. And also, governments are in place and laws are in place to protect businesses. See, if small businesses didn't thrive, then unfortunately economies would collapse. So the court system and the systems in place by governments and economies are as such that they protect small businesses, and you will always find that small businesses are looked after. You could easily take a business to court. And no business, by the way, wants to have on their record, because it's public information, that they got taken to court for £5,000, because it will affect their financing, their loans, and they can't take more money out. So no business will actually want to do that. Now, it can happen. It's extremely rare. It's not happened in 12 years, but it can happen. But hopefully that gives you an idea on how I would go about making £10,000 a month. And hopefully this step-to-step guide was of benefit. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.